Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Yamaha Late Night Show. Great to have you here with us. Wow, look at that. We have people dancing already. All right, just hearing the intro music. That's what we like. That's the energy we're looking for. And I'd like to welcome you all to our second panel discussion here at the Musikmesse 2018. And today we'll be talking about the future of music. And we've invited three special guests here today who all know their way around in music. And I'd like to welcome them with a big round of applause. We'll get to know them as soon as they're here on the couch. So please welcome Andy Varley, Duncan Dick, and Nick Pitts. Welcome. Nice to have you. Hey there. Great to have you. Have a seat, gentlemen. So, how's everybody doing today so far? Great. All right. Everybody, you got a mic? You got one or two, right? And just pass them on. All right. So first off, we want to talk about, of course, the future of music. And, you know, with today's technological features, apps, everything that's going on, we just want to know your opinion on what we can expect in the future of music. And maybe you can introduce yourselves just real briefly here for the audience. Maybe you want to start it off, Duncan?
Sure. Well, my name's Duncan Dick. I'm the editor of Mixmag, which is a dance music magazine based in London. We cover dance music and club culture. We started off as just a newsletter for DJs back in 1983. And so obviously we've seen a lot of changes down the years in technology, in culture, and just in the rise of electronic music to become probably the dominant force that it is today.
All right, thank you very much. Andy?
Hi, my name's Andy Varley. I'm the founder and CEO of the Insanity Group of companies. Insanity Group is a 360-degree global entertainment company. We have a management business which represents talent across the areas of music, TV and radio broadcast and digital. And we also have a joint venture record company with Sony Music UK. Insanity is celebrating its 21st birthday this year, and as I'm sure you can imagine, over those 21 years, we've seen a huge change in the way that music is consumed. I guess I'm coming at this panel more from a business angle. So yeah, that's me.
All right.
And finally, I'm Nick Pitts. I'm content director of Jazz FM. We are the world's largest English-speaking jazz media. We this year celebrate our 28th birthday, based in London, and we are about 2.5 weeks away from the Jazz FM Awards, which is our biggest event in the calendar that celebrates the genre jazz, soul and blues with much showbiz. All right. Yeah, there we go.
All right, so true experts in music here from all different corners. How did you get started? I mean, was this, let's say, like a lot of our musicians and experts we had here on stage before, they started off playing the piano, were in bands, and then eventually moved on to other positions. Was it similar?
Well, I don't really have much musical skill, as anyone who saw me playing the drums earlier will know. But I got really into club culture just when I was a student, really. I liked hanging about early in the morning, late at night.
Right.
I liked mixing with the DJs. I like being around really creative people, from the people who dress the club and come up with the flyers to the people who play the music. And I found out I liked writing about them. And so, yeah, I've just been very lucky to be surrounded by, you know, dance music is some of the most passionate people in the world about music. It's got some of the most innovative technologies, and it's a real privilege to be surrounded by that every day.
That's where you're in the position you are. How about you, Andy?
So, yeah, it's similar to Duncan, actually. I don't necessarily have any musical experience at all. I was actually thinking last night, my first kind of experience of working with a Yamaha product was probably age kind of 13, starting secondary school, having the dreams and ambitions of being a drummer in a rock band, and then was told very quickly that because I had zero hand-eye coordination, it meant that I couldn't play the keyboard, and in turn I wasn't allowed to take drum lessons. So I kind of quickly decided that if I couldn't play a musical instrument, be in a band, that instead I'd kind of focus more on the business side.
Right.
And so age 17, I set up Insanity initially as a company promoting club nights in Kent in the UK where I grew up. And then I guess like over the last kind of 20 or so years, the company has evolved into being this global 360-degree company. So yeah, unfortunately can't play any instruments and instead focus on helping those that can.
And how about you?
Apparently, according to my mother, my first word was some version of music rather than mum, which quite upset her somewhat. And as a kid, I learnt the guitar, then piano, and also dabbled in the drums, but I was pathetic on all of them. So in the end, I mean, I even tried in my mid-30s to pick up playing the piano again and started lessons again and failed miserably again. So walking around here today, seeing all these instruments and all these people playing, it kind of makes me want to, mid-40s, try again.
Right.
But I mean, I love music. I've been surrounded by it my whole life. But I very young decided if I couldn't be a musician, I wanted to work in broadcast and in radio.
Right.
So my career has been about broadcasting music, and right now, I've been with Jazz FM for 10 years and content director for nearly 5. My role is to the UK is to introduce new, incredible jazz, soul, and blues, along with some amazing catalogue as well. So my passion is in listening. I'm so into the production side of things as well. It really drives me also how it sounds in a recording and in a live setting. So as much as I'd love to play, I have an absolute passion for it.
And I guess that's the main thing. That's the main key. To have a passion for it, to love music, no matter if you actually play an instrument or not, no matter if you're in a band or not. I mean, that's the thing. That's what music does. It basically connects everybody from all corners of the world. And I guess that's also what we want to talk about. I mean, how can we ensure that making music stays fun with all the pressure there is today on musicians? It doesn't matter where they're from, but it's basically like everybody has the need to succeed in a way. How can we keep this on a fun level?
I think at a very basic level, something that's become so important in the last couple of years.
We try to tone that down if we can, because it is very loud.
Well, in the last couple of years, actually, the Me Too movement has really opened my eyes to how important it is to build a safe and supportive environment for people with talent, especially people from, not your typical privileged white male background. Just reading about some of, it's everywhere from the dance music world to even the world of punk, which everyone thinks is so socially liberal. Some of the stories and experiences can be pretty horrendous. Then on the other side, you can see at the moment there's so many great singer-songwriters coming through, female singer-songwriters, who've built a kind of community that's to support each other, to make sure that they've got a safe environment where they can express themselves. And I think just, it's all of our responsibility to make sure that people aren't exploited, that people aren't harassed, and just a basic safety issue like that.
Talking about women in music, we had a panel discussion here earlier on with some very inspiring, fantastic women in music, and it's just incredible if you think about how rare it is to find a woman in a certain position in music. There's representation as well. You'd want to see more women in management roles in the industry as well, because that diversity just contributes to building that supportive environment with role models and, just allowing people. What we do is we try and facilitate talent and connect it with an audience. And the more diverse that talent is, the better for everyone. The better.
I mean, just walking around here today, we say about passion, and I think the two things that that makes music so important is passion, and also it's about being relevant to your audience and your musicians of today. So, seeing the technology around here, I've seen so many smiles around, people playing and performing music today. And, just before we came on air and did this, there was a bunch of young people singing away around a piano, and you looked over and the smiles on their faces. And I think that's really important, is the relevance. In broadcast media, we have to try and remain relevant to a younger audience to let it grow and let it continue. And I think, going to the heart of it, which is the musical instrument, I think that some of the technology that is there will absolutely work to bring music to a new audience, of performers and of listeners and of people who enjoy it. And it'll go on to version 3.0 of music, I think, at the moment.
Do you find it more difficult to stay relevant for a younger audience currently?
So, I mean, our audience is at a constant level. And I think those listening to music ears, from a broadcast point of view, it's just about competition of brands out there who are trying to get the ears. So what you have to do is use the music and use the community or not use, that's horrible, but absolutely understand those two elements to make it relevant to what you're doing. But I mean, there's so much amazing performances and performers and music out there. It's about curating that correctly. But it all has to start with an idea, and it has to start with a passion to get it there.
Right, right.
I think also as well, you mentioned about the point of the pressure in the music business, especially to stay relevant and to sustain a long career. And I feel like certainly in my career in music management, I've been privileged to work with many artists that have sold millions of records globally. But I remember one particular client of mine who had a really strong foundation in the world of drum and bass music, and throughout his career had always maintained a huge amount of relevance within the scene that he was a part of. And almost like by chance, he put out a record that became very popular. It ended up shooting to #1 in the UK charts. And then I guess you then face this constant battle of, how do I stay relevant, but how do I protect my credibility? And I think as soon as you get into that cycle of releasing music to kind of tick the boxes that are required by record companies to stay on radio and to stay at the top of the charts, you're constantly chasing your tail. And I feel like a lot of those artists over the years, they then find themselves in this kind of slight moral dilemma. They've obviously been paid a hell of a lot of money by their record company, so they need to deliver a product. But at the same time, maybe they don't want to make records that are going to be pop records and played on radio. And so I feel like then it comes on to this whole issue surrounding mental health in the music industry. And I feel like those artists that are constantly battling with their inner demons of, how do I stay cool and current, but how do I stop myself from, in inverted commas, selling out, that can lead to some sort of self-inflicted pressures. And also the combination of the self-inflicted pressures and the pressures put onto you by your record company can often lead to artists maybe feeling they either don't want to make music anymore, or they don't feel comfortable or excited to be going back into the studio. And then I guess our job as managers is to really ensure that we're kind of protecting those artists and giving them the space that they require, so that if they do come into this issue of mental health and how that is affecting them, then I guess for us, we have to put aside the fact that I guess we're there to kind of further their career, and actually we need to start to take care of them mentally as well. Right.
I guess you've experienced this a lot, that an artist loses his creativity, his motivation, whatever. Would you say that also has to do with the fact that, I mean, labels, managers, whoever want to control them from the beginning? It has a lot to do with losing their independence. Is that, how do you find a balance there?
I actually feel that with the internet, with the rise of SoundCloud and Bandcamp, and with the way that musicians and artists can talk directly to their fans, that perhaps the pressure is slightly less, that the record labels aren't so much the gatekeepers anymore. If you arrive, like, look at the SoundCloud rap movement in the US. You know, these are kids making tunes, put them on SoundCloud, building their own audience organically with no one telling them what to do, communicating directly with their peers. And then when they go and get a record label, they've already got an audience. They've already got an aesthetic. They've already got their fans. They're already communicating with them on Instagram and Twitter directly. And so hopefully you would think that would help, you know, obviously they'll still need managers, but you would think that that would take the pressure off, allow them to be themselves, because they've already demonstrated that they're not quite fully formed, but that it works for them. And also just the way that the internet, you can find an audience so easily now. I feel like you can be as niche as you want. You know, you don't have to sell out. You can still make a career out of making non-commercial music.
Right.
We have a lot of artists who absolutely are, and we support that whole element of it. So, you know, one of the big things with a lot of radio broadcast media is, you know, it has to be of a certain duration and needs to follow a format, as it were. And this week we got an exclusive first play of an artist called Kamasi Washington, who's a really tall, imposing character. Last time I saw him, he was in a kaftan and Hunter Welly boots. So, kind of, out there. And the piece of music that was delivered to us was 9.5 minutes long on the air. So I was listening as a listener, and I got totally lost in it. I didn't think of it in 9.5 minutes, and I contacted the head of music afterwards going, I don't care how long it is, let's get it on the playlist. Let's put it on the A-list.
Isn't that what it's about?
And that is exactly what it's about. It's about being able to let your audience lose themselves in the music, from being a manager, from being a performer, from a writer, from every perspective across the globe. It's about losing people within the music. And that was one of those, it was a real clear moment to me on Monday. And the previous piece of music he brought out absolutely grabbed my attention as well. It was fantastic. It's great to be able to do that, and I would ask for more of that.
And I guess that's what art in general is about, right? I mean, music is an art form, which is not something to be like boxed, controlled, say it's only supposed to be 3.5 minutes long. Hey, if the song is 9 minutes long.
The battle is not to become a commodity, not to become a content creator responsible for filling in a slot, whether that's in a magazine trying to put you in a genre box, or whether that's a 4-minute slot for a song on the radio. It's just about, I really think there's more potential to succeed by staying true to yourself now. And I think in inauthenticity, people can smell it. And the amount of more careers have probably been ruined by trying to maintain that level of exposure and that level of commercial success than than people have succeeded by just sticking to their guns. I think it's a very exciting time for authentic music. Even some of the biggest stars, like someone like Björk, we had her in the cover last year. I mean, she is internationally huge. And Björk does not compromise for anyone. She does her own thing. If she wants to she did a mix CD for us. Most of it was flutes. No, but it was amazing. And, her sustained success is just having that freedom to defy expectations and not become another commodity.
But would you say she can do that because she's Björk, or? No,
she's Björk because she can do that.
Okay.
And she's the kind of artist that should be a model for everyone that wants longevity.
I think also as well, it's like, I guess we're here to talk about the future of music, and I guess in my career I do wear these two hats. Half of my working day is spent being a manager, and the other half of my day is spent running a record company. And so I often face that kind of slight moral dilemma, really. I feel like there's definitely a place in the future of music for record companies. I don't necessarily feel like record companies are the right home for all artists. And I think if you look in the UK especially, the rise of so-called label services companies that are really there to provide artists with the opportunity to get their music out there, but without necessarily the confines of somebody being expected to deliver a certain type of music or a certain type of record at a given point in time, because ultimately they're there to control their own destiny. And I think if you look at say like a British artist, a current British artist like Stormzy, there was this huge kind of music industry tussle to try and get him to sign on the dotted line, and he could have quite easily walked into any major record company in the UK and to pick up a huge kind of 7-figure check. What he instead decided to do was to sign with a division of Warner Music called ADA, which is a label services and music distribution company. He decided when he was going to put records out. He decided what the video was going to look like. He decided when it was to go to radio. And I guess you can just see like the phenomenal rise in his career as being something that I guess onlookers within the industry are just really inspired by. And I feel like that really opened up the floodgates for many other artists within that scene to kind of follow that same kind of method of self-releasing and self-promoting their music. So I certainly feel that with the kind of rise of modern technology, but also with the business side of music industry finally starting to catch up, this ability for people to come to events like this, to buy a musical instrument, to go home, to learn how to play it, to create this piece of work that they then put out themselves. I feel like it's a really exciting time.
Now, there are always two sides to the medal, of course. With the rise of all these streaming platforms and basically the possibility to download music anytime, anywhere, as much as I want, do you think we've become more obsessed just with the abundance of music rather than to actually feel it? I mean, I'm just going to take an example of my son. My son is 14 years old, and when I see the way he listens to music, it's basically just he flips through it. I want to hear that. I don't want to hear. They don't even listen. Not they, but I don't want to generalize, but he doesn't even listen to a song to the end. Like when I used to get it, I got on a new CD, I would listen to the CD from beginning to end, days, weeks, months, right? And I'd study the booklet, I'd read through it, I knew the lyrics. What has changed? What is happening? Is it because of the abundance, or how do we get that back?
Maybe music's too easy to come by now. I mean, perhaps when you can just put on a playlist that says, "Oh, Duncan's Happy Playlist," and the algorithm will generate it for the next eternity. Mm-hmm. Perhaps it's just too easy to come by. I mean, there's a danger with streaming that music becomes music, mm-hmm. that that passion, that connection is lost.
Or is it just a question of, is it just the generation? Is that just the way it is?
I'm pretty sure people were saying the same thing about, in the 60s about their kids don't listen to records
Probably,
all the way
right?
through. I mean, obviously younger people, they move fast and they break things. They've got a shorter attention span. But, I'm sure eventually, like a butterfly, they'll settle on a flower that they really like.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think at the centre of it is curation. And I know that could be from one track to multiple tracks. You mentioned algorithms and, as well as algorithms bringing music to people and helping them discover at the times as well. I get in my, on my account, playlist after playlist after playlist, and I go, I can't take it all in. I'll go to my usual 250 songs, and I think that is also a problem with it. I've got two children, and they both one of their time is pulled between so many things now, whereas when we were all youngsters, it was saving up your pennies, going and buying a single for the week or whatever it was. It's just not there now. So likewise, they are swipers. My son is into turn-of-the-century jazz. He sent me a photograph of a gramophone he bought only yesterday at a car boot sale. He's so excited about it. He's 19.
Nice.
And I think it's, again, back to this, algorithms aside, passion, curation, centre of it. And I think, it was a while ago, the labels, the majors didn't exactly understand what was going on in the wider world with the internet and where that was going to take music. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a shame because you end up having this system where that is driving the consumption, that is driving the curation, rather than being done in a quality way.
Mm-hmm. I think talking about algorithms, there is a danger that, just as Facebook becomes an echo chamber where you only ever listen to people who agree with you, algorithms that try and predict what kind of music you like, if your consumption of music is through these computer-generated playlists, coming across challenging music that takes you outside of your comfort zone, that can be a problem. I mean, they can be great for discovering new artists, but if you're only listening to what a machine thinks you want, you're inside your own little echo chamber.
Yeah.
And I think that's why everyone's, I'm not saying that journalists aren't perfect. We've got our own biases and our own prejudices, but, print media and broadcast media, we do have a mission to try and expose people to new sounds. Mm-hmm. And not just say, well, if you like this, you'll like that, but to tell them, there's this whole new exciting scene over here that is maybe a bit outside your wheelhouse, but get involved. It's worth it. Look, these are the characters involved. This is what it looks like, and so on.
But at the end of the day, people got to be open for it. It's still the decision of the. Basically,
you can't force
a
people.
certain awareness and consciousness, you know what I mean? Value music.
I think also as well, you were talking about your son and the fact that he'll be on streaming platforms, he'll be listening to music, and he has a really short attention span, and he's quite quickly jumping from one song to the next. I feel like that's really kind of, as a 37-year-old guy who kind of grew up, I guess, kind of taping the radio onto cassette and making my own mixtapes. Now you've got kind of, I guess, millennials and Gen Z kids that can literally just go onto streaming platforms and kind of curate their own playlists themselves. I think also, though, the kind of slightly negative effect of that on the music industry, and particularly for artists that are trying to achieve positions on, say, radio playlists, what's now happening is this huge abundance, not just of music, but the huge abundance of data that's at the fingertips of those decision makers at radio. What we're starting to find now is that they're aware of the so-called click rate or skip rate between records. So if you want to sort of gravitate, let's say within a streaming platform such as Spotify or Apple Music, if you want to have one of your records that starts to be used in some of the higher followed playlists, let's say like Hot Hits UK, one of the biggest kind of commercial playlists in the UK. In order to get into that playlist, you need to be able to prove to Spotify that your click rate is really, or your skip rate is really low.
That's not a new thing, though. I mean, that's essentially just like A-listing on Radio 1.
Totally.
Success succeeds, and the record industry now is a very efficient way of finding out what succeeds and what's popular, which can be to the detriment of more challenging music. But I think that was probably the same in the 60s when they were trying out Elvis's new song on WKPR.
Absolutely. No? I just think now that there's no greater time, I guess, for people coming into music. We were actually talking about this just earlier on. We were talking about the fact that for me as a kid, I really wanted to play the drums, and obviously I wanted to learn to play the keyboards. I feel like now you've got so many amazing instruments that will take up such a small space in your house, and you can quickly have one of these pianos that will take up a tiny amount of space, but you can flip between like a classic piano and a more kind of grand piano very, very quickly. And I think it just gives kids the opportunity to be able to combine their love of technology with their love of music.
Well, going back to grime and Stormzy, that whole genre was invented on Fruity Loop software, which probably hacked as well. But production technology, I think the democratization of production technology, the fact that you can do everything on a laptop, I mean, it's been hugely important for electronic music for a start. But for me, that's the really exciting thing. It's not that pianos are getting smaller and cheaper. It's that you can now create an entire genre with your friends on a laptop with a pair of headphones, and that's incredible.
But don't you think, I might be maybe the old opinion guy, I don't know. But anyway, I would think I appreciate the old way, kind of. I don't know. I'm just gonna say more than somebody sitting on their laptop, having everything there at their fingertips without having to actually, go through this process of how do I get that? How do I get? I want it. So you had to find a way to get your instrument, to learn the instrument, to mix this with other instruments to actually create a song. The process was a different one, and I think the appreciation for it was just different than it is today.
I mean, at the center of every great piece of music and moving forward, it should always be performance.
Right.
And it's funny you talk about this. Only a couple of weeks ago, I commute from London to London from the south, and I'm on a train a couple of hours a day. And there was a guy sitting opposite me on a table on the train. He had his MacBook open, and he had a little MIDI keyboard on his lap, and he was composing on the train. And I thought, on one hand, that is really good. The idea is there, and he's able to put it down there. But then at the end of it, I thought, it's a guy with a pair of headphones on, and what's going to happen if that becomes great? Someone picks up on it, it gets airplay, and then he has to perform.
Of course.
He can't do it on a train with a pair of headphones on. And I think that the performance is as important as the idea, and as important as the piece of music itself. And I think that, we were saying earlier on about, we've got a piano at home, sitting in front of it is as enjoyable as hearing something coming from it.
I don't agree with any of that at all. I just think not everybody has access to a piano in their house.
I get that. I get that totally.
It's a real middle. I mean, I was lucky enough to grow up with a piano in my house, but it's a middle class. It's a privilege. It's a bit of gatekeeping that music that's somehow made on one of these beautiful instruments is somehow better and more related to performance than music that's created with a pair of headphones and a laptop.
Good point.
And I think I don't agree with this kind of gatekeeping. I think that's what going back to what I was talking about diversity and access to creation, access to music. Anything that makes it easier for you to explore those passions. And the amount of artists who've started off on a laptop and then gone on to learn the piano, learn how to perform it. You know, it's incredible.
No, I understand that, but I suppose one of the things that you know the music is about is not just hearing; it's about conversation. It's about sharing it, and you know, today everyone's about small screens and headphones, which is very much that sort of what I was saying there. And we need to get people to start sharing it, start talking about it, start sixth form common rooming
well, that's when SoundCloud
maybe that's the next stage.
Bandcamp, that's when they come in. You know, you can make it, and within 2 minutes, anyone in the world can listen to it. You know, that's the future of music. That's incredible.
Also, if we think about the future of music, there was this incident about 2 years ago with Adele at a concert where she basically pointed out this lady in the audience who was filming, and she's right. She was like, well, could you please stop filming me? You're at a live experience here. This is not a DVD tape recording, DVD recording. What do you have to say to that? You know, I mean, this is the technology that we have nowadays. The benefits. How do we stay in real life?
I think I can see why Adele might have got a little bit cross, but at the same time, I just feel like we live in this so-called like generation now. Everything that we do on a day-to-day basis, and especially with the rise in popularity of social media, every piece of content we put out, we're hoping to achieve likes. And I feel like whilst Adele might have been slightly frustrated with the situation of a fan being at a show and filming the concert, coming back again to this kind of rise in popularity, especially of grime and UK rap culture, that is really built around social media, you know. People will go along to the shows, people will go to a club night, they'll go to a gig or a concert, and they're filming every single moment, and they're putting it out on Snapchat, Instagram stories, Facebook Live, and that, for me, can only be a good thing, because that's creating more awareness for the artist. It's making people even more excited to go and experience that artist live, or to go back into a nightclub environment to consume the music in person. And so I just feel that really that's just a fact of life now, and modern technology is helping to really thrive the live business.
Well, if they actually do that, great, good. But like, what is the motivation actually to go to the concert? Is it actually to say, "Hey, I was at an Adele concert and I want to show it to the world"? Is it that, or is it because I want to listen to her music?
Well, this is society. I mean, people, because social media has driven this dopamine rush that you get from the validation of strangers. You know, I don't think this is unique to music. You go to a restaurant and people are taking pictures of the food to put them on Instagram. I just
absolutely.
think it's just the way we live now. I mean, in a way, we were talking about performance. In a way, everyone now is the star of their own movie. They're curating their own aesthetic. They're curating their own life. And I guess that's just 2018. Whether it will be like that in 10 years, I don't know.
I think as well, it's interesting because my wife has quite a major hatred of technology. She needs to use it within her job, and she doesn't like social media particularly. And she said to me the other day, obviously she was being sarcastic, but she said, if it doesn't appear on Instagram, then did it even actually happen? And I think that's kind of quite a sad thing, really. But unfortunately, again, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
We all have to work around that.
Well, maybe Adele's got to raise her game. You know, if that person was completely lost in a transcendental experience when she was singing, they wouldn't even have taken their phone out of their pocket. You know, even if you spent 100 quid in a ticket.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Adele, it's your fault.
Okay. That's a way to see it. So now, nowadays, I mean, we're sharing music more than ever before. Also, you know, just basically what you just said. Is there a certain limit? Have we reached this limit? Where do we go from here? I mean, what's going to happen next? What else can we share? Is there more to share? Do we want to share more?
I mean, look, ultimately, music is at the heart and soul of life, and people will always be making great music, and there will always be the next generation of music fans. There'll be the next generation of music makers, and so the whole process of music making and consumption is going to continually evolve. I don't think anyone can really sit here and say this is what it's going to look like in 10 years' time, because I think if you asked me 10 years ago, would we be buying way less physical products, and would everything be consumed on streaming platforms? I wouldn't necessarily have been able to tell you that was what the answer was going to be, but I think we just have to face the fact that there will be a constant evolution, and some people will keep up and some people will get left behind.
I think a lot of these discussions about streaming, it's very easy to get wrapped up in them, but really it's a problem for record companies, you know, who are trying to make money out of it.
Right.
It's, the medium's not the message. You know, the music will find a way of getting out there, whether that's someone busking on a train or whether that's the latest streaming technology. That's a bit of a red herring. You know, obviously the democratization of finding an audience is great, but whatever, I think this is an issue of fairness, really. You know, when people worry about music being illegally downloaded or streaming platforms not paying royalties, it's a basic human issue of fairness, and technology can't fix that. You know, that just takes a sea change in attitudes. I would say though, blockchain technology has the potential to remove huge layers of middle management and connect artists to their royalties. You know, it's the same technology that makes Bitcoin.
Right, right.
You can, I mean, I'm freewheeling here, but you can store the information encrypted along with the music and make sure that every time that's played, the artist gets their royalties automatically, safely, you know, fully securely, and that has the potential to be the next big revolution.
And this
that's a lot of, you know, that should have a lot of impact on fairness and on royalties, and on, you know, I think at the moment organisations like the PRS who connect artists to their royalties, they're always on the back foot trying to catch up with the technology, and you know, understandably, just like tax collectors are always trying to catch up with the latest tax reads.
Right.
So yeah, blockchain's something to watch out for, but until human beings act fairly towards each other and stop exploiting each other, I don't think the technology is too relevant.
I'm not going to surprise you here from the background I am, but I think the future is about curation, and I think it's about sharing, and it's about people curating. It's about those who are lucky enough to be exposed to then share it out there and curate through the technology, whether that be broadcast or whether that be streaming platforms. I think that's really, really important to the future of music.
So I'd like to thank you, gentlemen. Unfortunately, we don't have much more time, so we'd like to conclude. One more question. Can we take a question out of the audience? Yeah? Are you open for questions? Yeah. So, is there? Yeah? Okay, can we get her a microphone, maybe? Leon?
Hi, I just wanted to ask, in what ways have you seen technology enhance the artistry of music?
Technology, sorry,
in what ways have you seen technology enhance the artistry of music?
Okay, how does technology enhance the artistry of music?
I guess really probably none more so than the electronic music business. I feel like the ability, as we were talking about before, for artists to make music on the go, and particularly with the rise, I guess, of electronic dance music in the last kind of 10 years, it gives artists and producers and DJs the ability to make music on the road. And I guess, yeah, there was a discussion about this just before about whether that is a good thing or not, but certainly from an electronic music perspective, with artists having the ability to fly all over the world and play major music festivals, and really not to have this ability in their schedules as, let's say, a rock star is able to do, where they can take off, say, 6 months to a year to write their album. I think technology has enabled the further evolution of dance music.
Awesome, great.
I think it's quite exciting that, you know, 20 years ago, if you wanted to make a certain sound with a synth, you know, you could end up spending £100,000 on it. Whereas now, for £4, you can make that exact same noise on your laptop with a, you know,
which is great.
Yeah, a synthesized synthesizer. But I think that's very exciting. I think anything that makes music easier to make and cheaper to make and allows people to be more creative, it might not sound quite as good as one of these things, but I think anything that just brings people through and that breaks down the barriers to creativity is great. And if technology does that, then that's excellent.
All right. So, nothing else to add. All right. So I'd like to thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. I think we can say that music has always reflected the times and trends of generations and will continue to do so in the future. Like you said before, it's hard to look into the future 5 to 10 years from now, but it'll stay interesting. And I think people will always, of course, love music. It's a passion, and we've enjoyed having you on the show. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up here for Duncan Dick, Andy Varley, and Nick Pitts. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks.